Back for week 2 of Around the League from from UGAsports.com. I'm trying to say from SECsports.com. That's a whole different thing. That's Jim Donnan. That's Brent Rollins. I'm Dayne Young. This is the show from UGAsports.com where we go around the SEC and kind of tell you what we think about every single game. Only one loss for the SEC coach in week 1, and that was just because of an extra point at the end. So pretty good showing other than those LSU Tigers.
Yeah, LSU almost pulled it out. The Florida State, you use that term for them. The Florida State almost Florida Stated it. Just had every reason to win and almost lost it. But hey, it was a great weekend of sports, and we started out on Thursday night watching Tennessee balls, and then just it was good. Everything was impressive.
And it was just exciting. I mean, in addition to Tennessee, there was also the great backyard brawl that went down to the wire in West Virginia. Unfortunately, JT got dropped the pass, but that, and then you have Florida and Utah, phenomenal game, great ending. And then the craziness that was the LSU Florida State, just a great weekend of college football.
It was, and now it's time for week 2 because when the season gets here, you turn the page quickly. We're doing that thanks to our friends at Connor Grading and Landscaping and at ASW Distillery. We'll tell you about them later in the show. Guys, let's start with the marquee game of the week, and that's Alabama at Texas. Alabama coming off a win against Utah State. Coach, the Tide, 20-point favorites on the road. I know this is a Texas team that doesn't have a whole lot in recent years, but that's still a lot of points down in Austin.
Yeah, it is. They're going to be playing 11 o'clock in the morning, too, Central Time. Fox is going to use it as their big game at 12 o'clock on the East Coast. So, everybody's getting to the Sark situation, being the coordinator at Alabama and knowing the offense and all. But and realistically, I feel like Texas has made some dramatic improvement, particularly at quarterback and the way they dispense the ball around to several receivers. Defense looks a little better. But the bottom line is, can their offensive line stack up against that pass rush with, Anderson coming off the edge and playing the ball in the air like Alabama's secondary seems to be doing now. Just a big mismatch up front. Overall, just talent-wise, Sark keep recruiting like he has. He'll catch up with Alabama in about 4 or 5 years. But I mean, you never know. I mean, on the road and all that, but Alabama got too many horses, don't you think, Brent?
Big time, too many horses. And you talk about the edge pressure that they're getting. You have Will Anderson already. You have Dallas Turner, who were impact players. Anderson obviously in his own category, but Turner as a freshman impact player. But they also got the highest graded defender in week 1 for them and played the most snaps was Chris Braswell. And if any of you guys – or if any of those people out there watch the HBO documentary on St. Francis High School there in Baltimore, Maryland, he was a big feature on that documentary. And he's finally, after not playing for a couple of years, getting a lot of runs. So that development from them is good from their pass rush standpoint. I think the other big interesting thing from Bama game 1 was Bryce Young had 4 scrambles for over 100 yards. He didn't even have 300 yards in rushing or scrambles a season ago. He only had 1 game where he actually had more than 3 scrambles against Tennessee. So if he's going to actually use his legs and be a weapon with his feet, that makes their offense that much more dangerous. But Texas, Bijan's going to get a lot of carries. And can he carry the load? Because Ewers actually in the first game had 2 turnover-worthy plays and a 50.8 pass grade. So I think you're right, Coach. Too many horses for the Tide.
Coach, the quarterback situation at Texas, it seems like that was something late into fall camp that was still being determined. Hey, you followed that program a little bit because of your Oklahoma ties, because they obviously play every year. What have you seen in Sark's development of quarterbacks there?
Well, he always is going to be quarterback-centric. I mean, he's been that way throughout his career. He was – I mean, you don't realize how good a quarterback he was at BYU. I mean, all you got to do is go to YouTube and see some of his highlights. I mean, he was an outstanding quarterback, and he knows how to coach them. But, you know, everybody thought with Ewers being a pretty boy coming home by that, I mean, he's not – I mean, he's driving a Porsche, so something's right about him. But He got it towed too. He didn't have the right sticker on it, but I'm sure they made up for it. But the biggest thing is he's a Texas guy, transferred from Ohio State, and bottom line, he was going to have to really perform poorly not to win the job with all that heat on with the NIL stuff he's getting. And I know that Sark doesn't look into that like maybe we do, but was a winning quarterback throughout his career in Texas, and he's got a good skill level. So I'm impressed with him. Maybe talking a little bit too much this week for Anderson and those guys. They'll probably be ready to jack his jaws, don't you think, Brent?
I think they will have a lot of welcoming party for him. Yes.
Let's move to our second game, and as we do so, I'm going to do it with bragging rights because, Coach, last week I told you I know everyone's on Utah, but Florida, they've got better athletes as a whole, and I think that came to kind of show Utah's defense not what it was last year. The Gators get the win in week 1, and I think the most important game of this week in the SEC, Kentucky at Florida. This is going to set the tone in the SEC East early. The Gators a 5.5-point favorite at home.
Just a tremendous win for Billy Napier, his staff, Gator Nation, everything. Just the way you want to start out a new program. Just everybody's got tremendous confidence. And if you just look at the how good they feel about Florida based on a goal line stand compared to how bad LSU feels about LSU based on a non-extra point. It's just the way things are going. I mean, everybody would have been on Napier about how did you lose the lead after going ahead and all that. But the main thing that I saw, Anthony Richard was spectacular. He did everything that you need to do at quarterback with his legs, and he threw the ball very effectively. I don't think they have anywhere near the wide receivers that they've had in the past there. But I think Brent mentioned it last year, the development of their O-line has made their running game a real kind of a stalwart part of their offense and keeps the other team off the field. And defensively, they made some huge stops, some very poor calls by Utah, not just at the end of the game, but end of the third quarter when they had a chance to score. They had 3 trips inside the 10 and only got 3 points. Kentucky Wildcats, boy, got some question marks there with their running game, less than 60 yards rushing. I mean, they got more rushing yards against Georgia last year than that. They've got injuries to their new running back towards ACL. Rodriguez is not going to play. I just don't think without being able to run the ball that they can be effective enough, even though Levis is a good passer and all that. Gators all of a sudden got everybody's attention. I know they got mine, don't they? Yours, Brent?
Very much so. And I think the biggest point in all that you made was the offensive line. Obviously, Napier brought Cyrus Torrance from Louisiana with him. He was their highest graded offensive player. 4 of their 7 highest graded offensive players were offensive linemen, 285 yards rushing. Richardson obviously is a sort of freak athlete that can do some crazy things once he gets in space. But I think that's kind of going to be the calling card. And also just the look of it. Like Napier was just here the whole time and calm, cool, collected in a very tense setting. You can just tell he's been on the sidelines before and had that experience. But I agree. This is one where all right, Kentucky, you lose your offensive line, your running back's not there, no running game. Your quarterback was pressured on like almost 40% of his dropbacks in week 1 against Miami of Ohio. So this could not go well for the Wildcats, and Florida feel insanely. And we talked about last week, 0-2, 1-1 versus 2-0 for Florida. How do you feel about your new coach? Like from the get-go, if they go beat Kentucky, they feel really good about where the direction they're heading.
And I would point out one other thing, too, from a coaching perspective, which I try to add on the show. Sometimes when you have an elite win like that, when you've been struggling and try to get momentum, it's good for your confidence. But at the same time, that edge that you had of work ethic and doing everything while everybody's patting you on the back all week, sometimes you're not ready for the game like you should be in your preparation. You spend too much time talking about Utah game and not enough about Kentucky. Kentucky knows how to win. They got a lot of good players, and they really, kind of like to play on the road. They beat the Gators down there. The overall impression I got of Billy Napier was a disciplined football team, a team that doesn't beat itself like all the penalties that you saw from Florida over the last couple of years. And they just don't give you much. They make you earn it all. Kentucky's very similar to that. should be a really good football game. And whoever can tackle in space and put a little pressure on the quarterback, I think is going to win this game.
My takeaway in watching Anthony Richardson, holy cow, did Dan Mullen love him some Emory Jones. My goodness.
Yeah, that's a good point there. General manager always looks at all those things and makes some comparisons. And for you fans that are just starting to watch around the league, we got Brent, who knows every stat in the history of football, and me, the old coach here, coming in from the rest home. But we got an NFL general manager that runs the show, Dayne Young. He's got really good contacts, and he is the general manager, no question.
Of the 33rd team in the NFL. Look it up. It's on there. Hey, let's move on to South Carolina at Arkansas, battle of the former Kirby Smart assistants with Sam Pittman and Shane Beamer. That game in Fayetteville, Arkansas 8.5-point favorite. Brent, that seems like a little much to me, but Arkansas also looked good in its opening game against Cincinnati.
Very physical game. I mean, Jefferson had to run the ball 15 times and almost had 100 yards rushing. But I will say, I feel very good about Arkansas in this game for one reason. And unless South Carolina can fix a whole heck of a lot of mistakes from the first game, their offensive line, team run block grade, 35.3, was by a country mile the worst in the SEC in week 1. 3.1 yards per attempt running, and Rattler was pressured on 40% of his dropbacks against Georgia State. Like, how's that going to look this week against Arkansas? But KJ Jefferson played well. Hazelwood and Matt Landers, one from Georgia, the other used to play at Georgia. They actually 6 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown. So I feel like Arkansas, unless the sort of physical game 1 and a little bit of letdown game 2, I feel like they take care of business here.
Yeah, the one concern I have about Arkansas is their secondary. When they don't get pressure on the quarterback, they gave up a lot of yards to a Cincinnati quarterback at just playing his first game. Although he's had a lot of experience playing, he transferred out and then transferred back in. But I agree with you. We talked about Rattler's inability to handle the rush, even when he's got protection. It has always been a problem for him at Oklahoma, and he showed it last week with the happy feet, 2 interceptions. We're going to see a team very much more capable of rushing the passer than Georgia State, although Georgia State's got some pretty good players. There's no question about that. I really like Jefferson. I don't think he's going to win a lot of games running for 100 yards, though, because I don't think he's going to do that in the SEC. They're going to contain him a lot better. Special teams, you can talk about it, but it sure helped the South Carolina Gamecocks with 2 blocked field goals and 2 blocked punts and 2 field goals. Long field goals by Jeter. So that made the difference. But Sam Pittman's got this team believing in him. They've got a sense of direction. The whole state is behind them. There'll be a sellout crowd. Rattler's going to have to really prove that he can handle it without a rushing game. I look for Sam to put it on his old cohort here at Georgia and Shane Beamer. And after the game, he talked about what he wanted to do is drink a cold beer. I think he's going to drink several after this game.
Coach, with the interceptions, that's a theme that I saw in week 1 where Spencer Rattler threw 2. I think Haynes King threw 2 as well at Texas A&M, and TJ Finley threw either 1 or 2. If you're not protecting the football, and we saw this with Georgia and Oregon with Bo Nix throwing 2, you're not giving your team a chance to win. And I think it's even more drastic than it has been in past years. This is happening in the NFL too, where the thing that's rewarded the most is accuracy from a quarterback. So if you're going to be having 1 or 2 interceptions a game, I don't know how you stay on the field in this league anymore.
Yeah, especially if you don't have just a Ben-Hur defense that can take the ball anywhere on the field and protect it. I mean, you give up the football to some of these high-powered offense when they got a short field. I mean, they're going 4 downs instead of 3 as far as their approach. I mean, they're going to go for it on 4th down or kick a field goal. So where you turn the ball over is important too. It's a lot different if it's on your end of the field or the other end because of the distance. But I agree with all the high-powered offenses, and Brent studies it, and he can go into a little more detail. But just because you're throwing the ball doesn't mean that it's going to be caught. There are a lot of things can happen. Your protection breakdowns, tip balls, incomplete passes, and interceptions. And it's the way of football, a lot more passing involved. But you got to have a quarterback there that protects that baby like it's his life. because you get those errant throws and then all of a sudden the pick six. You've got to really be careful with it. So I think in the case of Rattler, he has a tendency to throw it up for grabs. He's done it since high school. I don't think he's going to change. And we've seen that evolution. More teams are passing than they are running, aren't they, Brent?
Very much so. And I'll go back to something that probably my middle school coach and definitely my high school coach said. 2 out of 3 things that happen when you throw the ball are bad. So it's one of those things where if you can't protect the football, you're going to struggle in this league. You're right, Dane.
Let's move on to the final big game of the week. And the college football season started in Pittsburgh with, West Virginia losing to Pitt on a late interception, as we were saying. More on the receiver side than the quarterback side. But Tennessee, ranked number 24, goes to play at number 17, Pitt. The Vols, a road favorite, 6.5 points, Brent. You don't usually see a road favorite like that, but Tennessee getting the love right now over Pitt.
Yeah, and a lot of it's just offensive thing. But, I mean, it was a scrimmage with Ball State. Like Hooker was only pressured once and I think almost 30 dropbacks. But what's amazing to me is, I don't know if you saw this after the game, Coach Dane, but Narduzzi was like insanely mad about ESPN saying, hey, that West Virginia fans were going to take over the building. No, they didn't. Like, he was ripping on Scott Van Pelt and like getting onto him. I can't imagine what he's doing this week with them being in home dog, almost a touchdown underdog at home. He's going to use that to the nth degree in terms of motivation. But I think this is a great football game. And if Tennessee goes and wins, we might see a, kind of yesteryear SEC game with Tennessee and Florida both possibly being 3-0 in a couple weeks.
Good points about Sark. Excuse me, about the
Narduzzi.
Coach, Narduzzi. He certainly reminds me of a coach that trying to get some love. I mean, he's right there in the same building with the Steelers all the time, and but when you look at it, they're defending ACC champs. They're trying to make a move toward being a top 15 program, and this would be a signature win. I was impressed with Tennessee's plethora of receivers, not just the fact that they could throw to guys that have been there, but a lot of new guys, and then just moving around. And as you mentioned, Brent, not much pressure on the quarterback. A key here in this game, how's Slovis going to play? I mean, I thought he did a remarkable job playing in his first game in a new offense for the Pitt Panthers at quarterback after transferring from Southern Cal, and they really did a good job of hanging in there when West Virginia would make a run. They made a run, and that was an inexplicable interception. And what was really poor was the way West Virginia covered it. Looked like none of those linemen or receivers or backs or quarterback had any idea how to tackle an intercepted pass, and it was just a walk-in touchdown. So tough opener there for JT. We all were pulling for him, but I think Tennessee is at a point now that they got to prove that all these expectations are what their team's all about. Because, Tennessee has been so down. I mean, it's been, I think, several presidents in terms since they've been and even close to being in a conference race. And they, got a horrible record against their 3 big rivals, Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida. Alabama, Florida, and Georgia. So it's a big game, and it's going to be interesting to see which quarterback really gets the protection in this game. If a Hooker can just stay back there and pick his guys, it's going to be something. But the one thing you got to be careful about, and we've talked about it, if you rush him, he's really good at making first downs, and he's hard to stop. So the one thing that'll help Tennessee, I didn't see Slovis scramble much, and that's always hurt Tennessee, a scrambling quarterback.
Well, that's our quartet of, I was trying to figure out 4 quartet of main games for this week and around the league. We'll get to some other interesting games after telling you about our friends at Connor Grading and Landscaping. We're so happy that they're partnering with us once again. They are longtime supporters of Around the League here from UGAsports.com. And if you're watching our video, I'm showing you some of the things that they can do with your yard, whether it be moving some earth with some grading or getting some stone in there to make your backyard look a little bit better. They can really get your house home tailgate ready. They're Georgia fans. They want to talk dogs when they come out and do stuff on your yard. Brent, I think you were saying that you've had them come out to your place pretty recently.
Yeah, they were actually here today. Like, I talked to Steve, and he was talking about the game and how great it is to be a Georgia fan right now. And we looked at some things that I want to get taken care of, some side yard work, some of the front stuff that I've let go a little bit because I've just been busy, unfortunately. But no, they came out, take care of it. We'll quick estimate, be ready to go do things once it's all settled in. Great people.
The thing I like about them, interacting with you and listening to you, Brent, about your friends and also the people that when I looked at your house was the fact that you kind of told them what you wanted and then they kind of blended it in and made it happen. And that's what anybody wants. It's got to be a good deal both sides. And we're just happy they're representing our program, and we recommend them to at least give them a shot. Hey, get them over there and see what you need, because it's amazing the first look when somebody rides by your house or comes into your house to say, man, boy, that's a good looking yard. And hey, yeah, go talk to Connor. They'll get it going for you.
So if you're in the Northeast Georgia area, ConnorGrading.com. That's CONNER grading.com. And you know what? Just the kind of people these are. If you're not in Northeast Georgia and you're a Georgia fan, you found out about them on around the league, I bet you could throw some ideas at them of like, how do I get my yard to drain this way? I bet that's something they may get on the phone with you and chat about it, because with the rain that we've had in Georgia right now, you got to make sure your yard is looking good.
Hey, one other thing, if you're an Auburn or Tech guy, I'm sure they'll talk to you too.
Yep.
Right now, they definitely would. That is for sure. Hey, a couple other interesting games in some out-of-conference games for SEC teams. Vanderbilt trying to go 3-0, hosting Wake Forest. A ranked game. This would be the biggest win, and there aren't many, of Clark Lee's era at Vanderbilt. But still, can Vandy pull the upset and knock off Wake Forest? Coach, currently Wake a 13-point road favorite.
Hey, the good news for Vandy, they're 2-0. The bad news is Sam Hartman, a good quarterback for Wake Forest, who's had some trouble with blood clots, has been cleared. This kid was responsible for 50 touchdowns last year. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, when you look at it, only Tim Tebow and Watson and Lamar Jackson had more career touchdowns in one season running and passing. They've got an interesting offense, one that maybe Brent can detail you a little bit better, but their quarterback rides the ball up into the line forever before they decide whether to give it or not. And then the guy dances around. It's just like two-hand touch up there, the way they run their inside stuff. But Vanderbilt, impressive. We knew they were going to have trouble with Elon. Elon scored 30 on them, I think, or I'm not sure. But impressive offense. Wright's doing a good job at quarterback. If Vandy can start out 3-0, then there'll probably be a statue up there for Clark Lee all of a sudden, because now they're looking at maybe having a chance with a couple upsets being bowl eligible. So they got a tough fight there in this Vanderbilt team. My old coach, secondary coach, is a coordinator on defense now for them, and a lot of Georgia fans know Brad Lambert, who has done a terrific job at Wake Forest in the past and was the head coach at UNC Charlotte. So Vandy will be challenged with this defense that Wake presents them. But, boy, that's a big game. I mean, they might have 15,000 people there.
Elon scored 31 points. It was a 42-31 victory for Vandy.
All right, Vandy, are you real? And can the price continue to be right for Vandy? Like, Coach, look at 391 yards and 6 touchdowns passing, 254 and 4 touchdowns rushing for Mike Wright through 2 games. That's legit as it gets. It's beyond impressive for him. Now, obviously, the competition, but still, even in the past with Vanderbilt, they were squeaking by 22-21 or something like that in games like that versus actually putting points on the board and doing things offensively. So, hey, big game for the Commodores. Let's see them be competitive, maybe even pull off the upset.
I think Vandy's already exceeded expectations for this year. Now, maybe that's just the product of how low they were, but that's 2 good wins they just had.
Yeah,
fair.
But realistically, if you look at Vandy over the years, you would have to think that they would beat Elon, and then with all the people, the depletions on the Hawaii team. I mean, they had some guys. They went over to a couple of hotels and asked some guys that were out there on surfboards if they could play defensive back in that game. So it was pretty bad, the talent level there for the Hawaii They just don't. I mean, Western Kentucky throttled them too. They beat them really badly. So I look for. I mean, they got to play Michigan, don't they? They play Michigan pretty soon.
I think you're right.
Another game that is at 11 Central Time, just like Alabama and Texas. Missouri at Kansas State. Kansas State 8-point favorite. Brent, Tigers not expected to win this one.
This is massive for them for bowl eligibility. If they don't get this win, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough sledding for them to get to. They're going to have to pull an upset or two to get to bowl eligibility. At least one person that we talked about last week, Luther Burden. 6 touches, 43 yards, I think, and a couple touchdowns. They found different ways to get in the ball, both rushing and receiving. That's about it for Missouri. You got to do something and be legit and sort of win this game, or otherwise, I think your bowl eligibility is going to be in danger.
Coach, any thoughts on Missouri and Kansas State?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about Missouri to me is, can they win on the road against a really good team? That's a tough environment now. Kansas State has their own type of fans. A lot of guys have agricultural backgrounds. I mean, it's a big deal for them to come in there and tailgate on the weekend. They celebrate playing, any team, but actually it's always been a pretty big rivalry when Missouri used to be in the Big 12. There was a lot of close games there. So, Luther Burden, though, you can see why Budweiser gave him a franchise to go there. This guy is very talented, and you got to give the coaching staff a lot of credit for the way they're getting him the ball. But, Martinez, a quarterback for transferred from Nebraska, and really I'd like to see him go out and have a big year because he got so much blame there for what was going on at Nebraska. I think it's going to be tough for Missouri to tackle him in space. And Kansas State is a very well-coached team. I mean, that guy won 5 national championships at North Dakota State. He knows how to win. It's going to be a very difficult task for Missouri, but, stranger things have happened.
Difficult task in the sense of scheduling for Texas A&M. Stop scheduling Appalachian State as an out-of-conference opponent. Just don't ever do it. There's nothing to be gained, only to be lost. And North Carolina almost lost to them in some basketball score that was pretty ridiculous. App State scored 40 points in the fourth quarter and lost a football game. I don't understand how it happens. That's crazy. 3:30 ESPN2, Texas A&M, a 19-point favorite. Coach, Aggie's going to roll, or is it going to be tough?
Yeah, I watched that game. I mean, it's just inexplicable. Give up 40 points, and then at the end of the game, they ran a 2-point play and didn't make it, so they had to try an onside kick. Carolina got the onside kick. Instead of falling on the ball, the guy took it in for a touchdown, and they kicked it, and they were up 8. And there's 25 seconds to go, and dang if App State went down and scored again. I mean, Gene Chizik, I'm sure wishes he was back on
the SEC network.
40 points, but this A&M team to me, I'm a Max Johnson fan. I know certainly all of us are, but I just don't see Haynes' arm strength at any point in that game. I mean, he pushes the ball. He's got really good feet, and they got a good running game, but he's going to throw a lot of balls up for grabs, and this Appalachian State defense is not that good, but they really got a quarterback that's probably played longer than Stetson Bennett, and that Price kid who transferred from Clemson out to, I think, Northwest.
Duke. To Duke.
Played for Duke, and now he's playing for App State his second year because of COVID. But they'll give trouble to A&M, but they're not going to score as easily as they did in North Carolina against North Carolina. I think A&M is certainly a good team, but I don't see them being near as threatening with Haynes King, the quarterback, as they have been the last couple of years. Do you, Brent?
No, and what's amazing when you think about Haynes King is he started 3 games. One, he got hurt really on against Colorado, so you can't really count that. But basically in the 2 games he started against Kent State and Sam Houston State, he has 5 interceptions against those opponents. Like, hey, Dayne mentioned it earlier. Take care of the football. Like 6 drives for A&M against Sam Houston State were either a punt, like early 3 and out, or a turnover. You can't win like that, and you're not going to be sustained. Now you got to week 1 to week 2. How much do you improve? But this is, like you said, this is the ultimate. Like, trap game. They got Miami next week. Looking ahead, like this is a interesting game for A&M.
Interesting start time for Mississippi State. Brew your coffee if you're on the East Coast.
Coach is watching this one. I knew it. Coach is watching this one.
Kickoff at 11 p.m. Eastern time. Mississippi State at Arizona.
I had no idea until I watched a little bit of that San Diego State game that they got over 50 transfers playing for Arizona. It's like a USFL team starting out from scratch. I mean, and they did a good job. I mean, they were terrible last year, but that's a big win. They're playing at San Diego State with their new stadium and everything. Surprising, but well, I'm telling you, that defense for Mississippi State looks pretty salty to me. I think that's going to help them. And then, of course, Will Rogers can dispense the ball. Coach has been Leach has been used to playing Arizona. He was the coach out there in the Pac-12. It's a tall task for Arizona to beat an SEC team, particularly as well coached as they are. So I'm picking Will Rogers to keep on going there.
Yeah, like you said, Coach, all these transfers. Look at last year, Arizona won one game. They lost at home to San Diego State by 24. Play them on the road this year and win by 14. It was their highest team grade for a single game since week 2 of 2019. Like they've been awful since then. So, it's a great win for Arizona, but then you get the SEC coming to town. Rogers, we talk about how quick they get the ball short, all that sort of stuff. Against Memphis, Rogers was 4 of 5, 124 yards and 3 touchdowns on 20-plus yard throws. So pushing the ball down the field, I think they continue to do that and get that win on the road in a very late game that I will not watch and stay up and watch.
Hey, here's the deal, too. Hard to rush the passer when you're a rhythm thrower. I mean, I don't care how good your pass rush is. They throw the ball on time, and he knows where to go with it. And he's a magician as far as picking up the extra guy if all of a sudden he doesn't throw on time. Hard to sack him, and it's very disturbing to your offensive team to be sitting over on the sideline, and here they go making another first down. You can't get on the field, and all of a sudden you pressure yourself to do things, and you make mistakes on offense. I think this is a team that is a real threat to be right up there in the second or third or fourth spot in the league, and presents a real challenge to Georgia when they go down there late in November. That's going to be a tough ball game for us.
And let's check the schedule on Mississippi State because they handled Memphis pretty easily. Not something they've done in the past. That's usually a tough game for them.
Right.
But then if you win at Arizona next week at LSU, well, Mississippi State's a better team than LSU. So it's just, can you overcome the atmosphere of Baton Rouge at night? Then after that, Bowling Green, all of a sudden, if you figure those out, you're 4-0 headed into a home game against Texas A&M, which would be a statement game for Leach. And one they can win.
Already beaten Texas A&M and LSU on the road, so they know how to do it. They beat in his first year. They beat LSU and then didn't do much after that. And then last year they beat A&M on the road. I'm telling you, the old Pirate, he's kind of sneaky the way he talks about his team, and he's kind of not giving them much love. But the thing that's going to help them defensively, they're really a solid team, and they tackle well and got a bunch of guys that play well as a unit. So I'm high on the Mississippi State Bulldogs.
Well, if you're going to be up late at night anyway watching Mississippi State on Saturday, might I suggest enjoying some spirits from our friends at ASW Distillery.
Yes, sir.
You'll be feeling good after that. I had some on the post-game overreaction show.
Celebrating the Georgia win, too. That's right.
There you go. So this is ASW Distillery. Five of their 6 founders are UGA grads. I'd like to say that they are distilled by dogs. They're based in Atlanta. They have 3 tasting rooms there, but you can find their products, their bourbon, their vodka, their gin. You can find them in Georgia. You can find them around the Southeast, but also in specific stores out in Texas or Los Angeles. They're really good people. They're Georgia fans. So when you're doing what you need to do at a bottle shop and saying hello to your preacher on the way, because we know that happens, then give the Fiddler a shot. That's the one that I like. There's a few different kinds of it, but try out ASW Distillery products. You'll be glad that you did. They do partner with a lot of athletics in the state of Georgia. They had a bourbon partnering with the Atlanta Braves, celebrating the World Series win. So we're glad to have them as partners here on Around the League and UGAsports.com. Let's just mention quickly the final 4 games. These are cupcake games in the league this week. Southern is at LSU this week. Central Arkansas at Ole Miss. San Jose State at Auburn. And Samford plays at Georgia. Brent, anything there that catches your eye?
So Georgia, do we see Carson Beck set a career high in pass attempts? He's 10. This is the most he's had in one game, both against UAB and Charleston Southern. Do we see him get a lot of time and throw the ball? Because we saw it last week against Oregon. Branson Robinson, I want to see a little bit more of him because the few carries that he did get, there was some definite juice behind him running. Ole Miss, Coach, you're going to love this. Ole Miss, with all the different transfers, TCU transferred Evans and another defender with a couple sacks. Remember the Auburn guy that was 300 pounds playing tight end for Gus, now playing defensive line at Ole Miss. And their leading tackler, transfer from Central Michigan, Troy Brown. Good name that Coach Donnan knows in the past.
Well, but keep on. You got some other interesting things to say. Go ahead.
The only other thing would be who plays more quarterback for Auburn? LSU. What do you say about LSU? Don't be crazy.
Yeah, that game against Southern. Right there, it's kind of a team from right there in their own school. Right there in LSU and Baton Rouge. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm looking for. Central Arkansas is always a pretty good team, but the team you got to watch, it can throw the ball. San Jose State always has a good quarterback. They're well coached. They'll surprise you. They're probably better than that Georgia State team that came in there and really almost beat Auburn last year. So this won't be a walk in the park. But if they're talking about alternating quarterbacks, Robbie Ashford may be coming in. I thought TJ did some good things, but certainly it's great to see Georgia come in as the defending national champions, first game in Sanford Stadium. Chris Hatcher is a really good coach, and we're going to have him on a special interview here that Dayne and I are going to do for all you Georgia Bulldog fans here in sometime pretty soon. So I'm sure everybody will like that.
A lot of good storylines there with Chris Hatcher having coached with Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp, hiring them at Valdosta State. We'll talk about that with him. Hey, thanks for watching Around the League, everyone. We'll be back for week 3 next week. For Jim Donnan and Brent Rollins, I'm Dayne Young, saying thank you to Connor Grading and Landscaping and ASW Distillery, who are our sponsors for Around the League. Go check them out, connorgrading.com, or you can check out ASW Distillery at aswdistillery.com. We'll be back for Around the League next week.